Welcome to today's Explainer. I want you to take just a second right now and picture walking through your front door. For some of us, that's a deep, relaxing breath of relief. But for others, it's the exact opposite. If your living environment is chaotic right now, if the walls need touch-up paint, the furniture is completely mismatched, or there are these half-finished projects just lurking in every single corner, walking inside can carry a remarkably heavy emotional toll. Your home is supposed to be your ultimate place of rest, but instead, it just leaves you completely drained.
So that brings us to a deeply personal and honestly often unspoken question. Is it crazy to think your messy home is the literal root of your anxiety? Like, is it crazy that staring at chipped paint, a couch you absolutely hate, or just endless mismatched items is completely draining your ability to focus, to relax, or even just function properly?
Well, I am here to tell you emphatically, no way. It is not crazy at all. Actually, it's a validated scientific reality. There is an entire scientific field called environmental psychology that is dedicated exactly to this phenomenon. The physical spaces we inhabit, they don't just reflect our mood. They actually dictate our emotional regulation, our stress hormones, and even our cognitive capacity. Here is our roadmap for the Explainer today. We'll be covering 1. The science of messy homes. 2. The anxiety feedback loop. 3. Strategies for visual quieting. 4. Navigating home improvement conflict. 5. The family landlord trap. And finally, 6. The waiting room mindset.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the science of messy homes.
At the very core of this issue is something called cognitive load. There's this heavily cited 2011 study from the Princeton University Neuroscience Institute, and they looked at exactly what happens in the human brain when it's surrounded by clutter. They found that multiple visual stimuli present in your field of vision simultaneously compete for neural representation. So what does that mean in plain English? It means that the chipped paint and those messy surfaces are literally fighting for your brain's attention. Your brain has to work harder just to exist in that room, which makes it significantly harder to focus or process information. It's like having 100 browser tabs open in your head all at once.
And that brings us to this concept of allostatic load. Basically, this is the cumulative biological burden of chronic stress. Think of it like a bucket. If your home drains you rather than recharges you, your baseline stress bucket is already 80% full before you even walk out the front door in the morning. And because you aren't recovering neurologically at home, you venture out into the world with impaired executive function and honestly a much shorter fuse. You see, our biological response tracks really closely with our environment throughout the day. Back in 2010, UCLA researchers tracked the cortisol levels, that's your stress hormone, of couples inside their homes. For women who described their homes as having unfinished projects or a lot of clutter, their cortisol completely failed to properly drop off in the evening. The nervous system actually interprets a deteriorating environment as a mild, constant threat. You physically cannot relax because your environment is constantly demanding unresolved action.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the anxiety feedback loop.
So being stuck in this constant threat state creates a completely rational yet highly destructive cycle. First, you're triggered by the unfinished environment. But because you can't physically escape the room, you might self-medicate, right? Just to chemically escape the anxiety and force your nervous system to calm down for a minute. The problem is that coping mechanism creates heavy fatigue, which completely drains your executive function, the exact mental energy you need to actually clean or fix the space. As a result, the home deteriorates even further, and the loop just starts all over again.
Okay, so how do we break the cycle? Let's look at Section 3, Strategies for Visual Quieting.
Look, we aren't trying to remodel right now. Here are 4 micro-solutions that will drop your baseline stress in minutes. First up, turn off the big light. Overhead lighting is incredibly harsh and highlights every single flaw. Use warm lamps instead to signal your brain that it's time to rest. Second, neutralize hated objects. Seriously, hate that couch? Throw a massive ultra-soft neutral blanket right over it. Boom, you've solved the aesthetic problem in 60 seconds with zero heavy lifting. Third, establish a micro-sanctuary. Just pick one chair that you sit in and only clear the direct line of sight from that specific chair. Give your brain a safe little docking station. And finally, the Doombox strategy. Just sweep all surface visual clutter into a large opaque bin and pop the lid on. It doesn't matter if the inside is a total disaster, if the lid is on, the visual trigger is gone.
Because here's the thing. Organizing a whole room requires a high cognitive load. It demands intense decision-making and immediately triggers overwhelm. Compare that to a 10-minute trash-only sweep. You just grab a black garbage bag and only pick up actual trash. No deciding where the books go, no folding clothes. It requires zero decisions and completely bypasses decision fatigue. Moving right along to Section 4, Navigating Home Improvement Conflict. You know, when one partner rushes into a secret paint job and completely botches it, it's not incompetence. It's actually the amygdala, the survival center of the brain, overriding careful planning because of urgency and stress. The other partner, who is already completely drained, then implements this rigid, no more painting rule just to protect their own baseline stability. So what's the research-backed solution here? Outsource it. Research from Harvard Business School actually shows that spending money on time-saving services drastically decreases relationship friction. So hire a thumbtack professional for a microscope, like just fixing one specific door trim. Agree together on what success looks like, and then maintain a total hands-off policy. This removes the emotional baggage from the wall and provides a shared dopamine hit of progress.
Now let's unpack Section 5, the family landlord trap.
For those renting, especially from family, you're facing what economists call the split incentive problem. You invest your hard-earned money and sweat into fixing up a space, only to realize you are just building your landlord's equity. It is incredibly exhausting. And in this chaotic space, it's vital to remember that moving a partner's personal items, even just to clean up, can violate their very fragile sense of autonomy. Those little items act as grounding anchors for them when everything else feels totally out of their control.
So what's the solution here? It's the portable peace strategy. You make a hard rule right now. You spend $0 on the physical structure of the landlord's house. Do not fix the drywall. Instead, invest any money you do have into movable comforts, a plush rug, a great lamp, some beautiful art. Basically, you only fix what you can literally pack up and take with you when you eventually leave.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 6, the waiting room mindset.
This is where we need to use a little cognitive reappraisal. If you're constantly judging your current space as your forever home, then obviously every chipped paint job is going to feel like a massive personal failure. But we have to shift that perspective. This place, it is just a waiting room. It is a temporary financial incubator that is keeping you out of the rain while you rebuild your credit and your life. A waiting room isn't supposed to be beautiful, it literally just has to work.
Once you accept that you're in the waiting room, you've got to practice radical acceptance. Abandon the aesthetics entirely and focus only on function. Does the sink work? Yes. Are the doors locked? Great. And since you can't afford visual perfection right now, you need to win with your other senses. Use auditory masking by playing some lo-fi beats to quiet the room down. Use olfactory soothing with a nice candle, because a home that smells safe feels significantly safer. And focus heavily on tactile comfort. Wear ultra-soft clothes and use plush blankets to physically soothe your nervous system.
Because here's the beautiful reality. If you are going through this chaos with a partner and your absolute biggest conflict is the house, you have an incredibly strong foundation. You are fighting the house. You're not fighting each other. After years of hardship, maybe financial trauma, if you can look at each other and say, we are still protecting each other, then you have already won the absolute hardest part of this journey. The credit will rebuild, the money will recover, but you are surviving this as a team.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. I want you to look around your space right now. How can you apply the waiting room mindset to give yourself a grace pass today? Seriously, drop the guilt, claim your small 5% sanctuary of peace, and give yourself permission to simply pause. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.